And welcome back to the WatchPitch podcast and YouTube channel. We are in the Sauna House here in Asheville, North Carolina, with owner and founder Andrew. Last name, sorry.
Lachlan.
Lachlan, that's right.
Yeah.
Geez, sorry, Andrew.
That's okay.
And because we've seen each other in a lot of circles of entrepreneurs, and you have, I think, more than a startup here, that's for sure. Isn't that, I think you have more than that.
I don't know. I would still call it a startup.
Yeah?
Yes. Startup is startup mentality until the next phase.
Right. Well, and I want to talk about that next phase, but
Yeah.
I got to say, I was here last week at the Sauna House, got a good sweat on, and I'm such a believer of this path of just dropping in, getting sweaty, doing a cold plunge, hanging out with good people, sometimes not talking at all. Mm-hmm. And it's just, like, for me, it's just medicine. And I'm just, and there's a lot to back that up. Maybe just to get started, because I'm so enthusiastic about being here. And thank you for hosting this podcast episode and YouTube channel episode.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Tell me how this happened.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit on a bunch of like my favorite things to talk about, obviously. So, I mean, well, there's two stories. There's the before, and then there's when it opened, and then now we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary, which is crazy because it was like startup, shut down for COVID, startup again. Right. Now we're a 3-year-old company. 1 year, recovered from COVID, and it's been an unbelievable journey. But bathhouses, and sauna and cold therapy, our version here at Sauna House is we have a couple traditional saunas, or saunas, as they say in Europe or Scandinavia.
Okay.
We have a couple of those, and then we have cold water therapy as well. And how we've paired it is, bathing practices around the world have existed since the beginning of time. Mm. It's fundamentally human. Like, all of our ancestors did it somewhere, sometime, someplace. And it was always derived around whatever the natural resources were in that area. So in Finland, where the sauna was originated, they have a lot of birch wood, and they've got a lot of cold water. And so, in Rome, though, you had a lot of different bathhouses. And then in Japan, you had onsen, which is all about thermal bathing. And that's different water temperatures and circulating between them. So this has existed all over the world in different shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. And, Sauna House is my version. I took a lot of the ancient practices and then put them in a place where the amenities within those bathhouses had the most profound scientific research behind them. So that turns out to be the sauna and cold water therapy, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so we created a bathhouse that, allows people to do that in a social but chill environment. And then it turned out to work. People seem to like it. It's working so well. And I got to say, when I started thinking about doing this show with you, this place touched me. So I love the vision. It's, it's in my body. I love the path of, taking good care of my body and taking a time out. Yeah. And I feel this is really fundamental because it does have all that history in our sort of physiology. Yeah. And to figure out a way to enterprise this is the thing that I'm super fascinated about. And because this season of the WatchPitch podcast and YouTube channel has been all about, what businesses are doing with the thaw, quote unquote, of COVID. Yeah. You are just a perfect guy to talk to about a guy that launched a business prior to COVID, super fresh, like launch mode. That's a whole mentality. Yep. And then the brakes go on. Full halt, like full stop. Yeah. And you still need oxygen, right? I mean, because this was not Yeah, we were panicking.
This was not turnkey. I mean, you did a lot of work on this building. In fact,
Yeah.
I think this building was abandoned. I don't know.
It was, yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
Bad.
It was bad,
It
right?
was. We touched everything.
Yeah.
Everything got upfitted.
Well, and it's gorgeous, but that didn't happen without a lot of capital.
Yeah.
And then to navigate something like hospitality up close and personal with COVID, and doing it in a way that is prioritizing the medicine, is prioritizing the customers,
Yeah.
and the business. I mean, it's remarkable what you've done.
Well, I attributed a lot of it to luck.
Okay. Well, then you're a very lucky man.
And the government programs did save Sauna House, right? And being in the Southeast was a big part of saving Sauna House too. I have colleagues on the West Coast whose bathhouses were closed for 8 to 10 months, and that was a storm I don't believe we could have weathered. But yeah, we were really fortunate. But let's see, to take the medicine part, right? And we believe in like people, profit, and planet, right? So Sauna House is a great working environment, and we try really hard to care for our staff. And right now we have an amazing team, right? And
you do. Like the culture here, the impact, everybody is like, they're in the zone.
Yeah.
And you get it as soon as you open the door.
And we were, we always had like entrepreneurial spirit. We wanted self-starters, people who would take initiative to fix things and solve problems. And we created, Jen, that's like one of my fundamental values is freedom, and I want people to have freedom and autonomy, and I know how important that is. And Jen really like echoed that out through the staff and the team, and she really built the company, from a hospitality standpoint.
Jen is HR.
No, she's really the COO of the company now. She was my first employee. I hired her October 15th. She just had her 3-year anniversary. I was like, we'll definitely open by November 1st. So you can start October 15th. And
you get 2-week ramp up, right?
Yes. And then we opened, of course, February 1st, right? So, and in between her hiring and opening, we had our first daughter. And so that was kind of insane.
Andrew. Geez.
And then, Jen hired everybody. We had 3 amazing people, Jen, Emily, and Madison at the start, and they ramped us up. And then when we closed, we had 22 people 13 months later. And then we had to let everyone go, and including Jen. And Jen ran a book club during COVID, though, for our whole team. Yeah, even though they weren't really part of the company
to stay
anymore.
Together.
Yeah. Kept people together and helped. And that was the start of building resiliency. Like COVID, I was really scared about the initial shock of the virus, all this news. You don't know what's going on. My company's closed. We have no money. I have 2 kids, or 1 at the time. My wife was pregnant with the second one. We found out we were pregnant with the second one a week before we closed for COVID. And that makes me feel a little sensitive right now. It was intense, reliving this, you know?
Yeah.
And, but so resiliency was like the theme early on. Like I talked to Jen probably every 2 days through COVID the whole time. Sauna House became my clubhouse. I came down here, illegally, and spent I'm allowed to come to my business as a business owner, but
sure.
I came down here, it was like my clubhouse during COVID. And, but when we started hiring people back, and, we were all masked up. I installed UV and HEPA air filtration right away in all of our massage treatment rooms and in the whole building ductwork system. And, I believe that air quality is extremely important in this time. So we did that to help, protect staff. Our business is somewhat fortunate that people aren't in close contact inside of our staff throughout the day. So that was really a fortunate thing. But now we have 35 people. So since COVID, and Jen, Emily, and Madison were the 3 people that came back first and reopened the company, the same 3 people that opened it the first time. And then they rebuilt the whole team. And it's really been incredible to watch, customers come back, and we had to change all of our booking software, all of our pricing, we really did reopen a different company. We manage more reservations per month than a 100-room hotel, right? So we had a huge management and organizational management retooling.
Massive. Oh.
And because we had to figure out how to limit capacity and get people through safely and through stages.
So in the beginning, was it just come and then you just have
it was
access all day?
walk-ins always.
I
And
see.
you could stay as long as you liked. So some people stayed 6 hours, and that was not a sustainable business model after COVID for us.
I see.
And we're still at like 60% of the volume we used to do. But we've figured out how to more than 2.5x our average ticket price pre and post COVID. So we make a lot more money now and we see a lot less people. And so that was everything. It was like, we have to focus on how to make this a little bit more premium, how to get more memberships, things like that. We always had amazing new customer acquisition. And
I can imagine first time they go, oh yeah, I want to do more of this.
Yeah, it was crazy. Pre-COVID, it was I'm not going to disclose the number, but it was good.
It was good.
And then it's good again.
Yeah.
And,
nice.
But yeah, we had to really figure out our packages and then figure out how to move people through space safely. Fortunately for us, like coronavirus, it's killed inside the sauna. It can't live in there it sort of depends on the size of the particle and how long and what temperature and the humidity levels and blah, blah. But very short time.
I see.
And pool bromine also kills COVID. So that's pretty safe. So we were fortunate in those ways, but
yeah, very smart.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I want to sort of go into the future of the Sauna House, because I know you have a big vision
for sure.
And I want to be able to champion that. And
cool.
I also just want to acknowledge that just in our sort of warm up time to get to know each other a little better, I hadn't realized that this is not your first entrepreneurial rodeo show, you know, by any stretch. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit in the context of, because we have, of course, a lot of startups and entrepreneurs and business owners and, of course, investors that are listening and watching this show. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, there are casualties as a startup entrepreneur, even as investors, with businesses.
Right.
But you learn something.
Totally.
As you take on that casualty. And I'm wondering if you might just reflect back on, some of the other businesses that you have started and have had to let go of because the math didn't ever play itself out.
Yeah.
But because I think, for some reason in what would on the surface be a very challenging business during this time, you figured out a way to make it work.
Yeah. I mean,
and
we did. That's the truth.
Okay. So that's good. So now
I'm
it's a
we mentality person.
Right on.
I'm a dreamer. And so I try and surround myself with doers. And that's a really important thing for different CEOs to know. Are you a dreamer or a doer? Because there's both, It's just, you need to offset that with some opposition. We do all the personality tests and stuff. And,
right.
And that, but tell me the question again.
Well, it mainly is, these. That's all right. The main thing was just looking back at some of the other businesses.
Oh yeah, the other businesses.
Yeah,
sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got
that's
this.
all right. And I mean, because you did a lot of innovative stuff.
I keep actually a journal, right? Like of businesses, and I'm a big fan of keeping notes in two places, one in paper and one in my phone, and then I bring them together and stuff. But over the years, I've had vastly different companies too. When I was young, I owned a car washing company and detailing company, and I learned a lot about customer service in that business. I also learned about do I want to listen to people complain about things that cost $25? Is that kind of the company I want to be involved in?
Right.
It had it was strictly financial too, and I'm a very community driven team player, and I like purpose and mission. And that business didn't really have that for me, but it did have a lot of interesting aspects about sales and economics, and so some lessons there. And that was actually a pretty successful business. And that, I don't know, but toward the end of that business, my alcoholism was rampant, and I had an accident on the job, and so I sold the company to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I did what any smart 23-year-old would do. Sold it, got a backpack, and went to Europe backpacking. And on that trip, I fortunately was able to quit drinking for the first time. Like a couple weeks into it, for some reason, I call it like my first spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened, and then I came back after that trip, and I got involved in my next business, and I was importing sunglasses and distributing sunglasses.
Oh.
And I was taking helicopter flight lessons at the time. And so I started a helicopter company. We did aerial tours and photography and things like that. And really, it was just like a business that helped me offset a hobby. So those are great businesses if you have an expensive hobby you want to get into, right? Like, because flight time in a Robinson R44 is like $600 an hour.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
So
that's a big number.
Yeah. And so I needed to find a way to like pay for that.
Right.
And so we leased a helicopter, and I
How
partnered
many
with a
hours have
pilot.
you logged?
Like 214 or something like that.
That's great.
Yeah. I don't fly anymore because it's too expensive.
And you're running another business. I get it. Yeah.
If I make it to the top,
Yeah, right.
if things with Sauna House go through the moon, then maybe I'll fly again in a helicopter.
Right.
But airplanes are safer, sort of. Yeah, but I had other businesses too that failed. Like the sunglasses company really was a fail. Like we had to kill that company, and I like had to exit out of that with a loss. And a big part of that was, we just had not the best partnership with my co-founder, and also I began drinking again. And so that was a big part of like that failure in that company. But we made mistakes in the business too, right? So
Sure.
But then I stopped drinking about 9 years ago now, I think. And since then I've been able to stay sober. And sober for me is not what sober for everybody is, but it's definitely sober from alcohol. I can tell you that.
Nice.
Alcohol is not something I consume.
Great.
But sobriety is an interesting topic because Judson Brewer, who's an amazing researcher, he's addiction is everything, right? You can be addicted to literally anything. And so if you want a book recommendation for how to change a habit, I would say Judson Brewer's book called How to Change Your Mind. Or no, that's not it. Unwinding Anxiety is an amazing book.
Okay.
So go take a look at that.
Good.
But yeah, a lot of failures that brought me here, but also some small successes. I had a lot of different LLCs, as we mentioned before the thing. I just shut some down after time. They just don't work.
Well, and just let's just silo that one thought. When do you know it's time to shut it down? I mean, I know there's always obviously the balance sheet and cash flow.
Yeah, I think you just get to a point where you wake up in the morning enough days in a row and you don't want to do it. You don't really want to do it, You can grind through that for a long time, and some people do, but everybody's kind of tolerance for that suffering is different, I think. But if you're being honest with yourself, I think you really know when something's working and when it's not. And if it's something that should be working early and it's not, then you got to get out of there. But if it's something that takes a really long time to build, then maybe you got to stay in for a long time. But for me, it always seemed like pretty evident, like enough days waking up feeling shitty about it.
Yeah, Ooh. That's a great litmus test for sure. Well, the other piece too, I imagine, because I'm on fire about what you're doing here at the Sauna House. I'm a big believer of all the elements that have come together to make this happen, and have seen similar kind of bathhouse or hot tub kinds of businesses coming from the West Coast, where people have figured that out very well. And of course, you mentioned earlier on the West Coast, they've had a real struggle with COVID in a big way. And it's hurt businesses maybe a little harder than us here in the Southeast. And now I just saw this morning, there was the first sign of this new variant that showed up in California. So, we're not on the other side of this thing, and it may be something that we're living with for a while. But my sense is the bones are great here. And I would imagine they're there is some kind of initiative to want to duplicate this.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I wonder if you might talk a little bit about that, pivoting now to the future.
Well, we were working on expansion before COVID. We wanted more of these. And so we've been
Sort of in a franchise model, kind of?
not in a franchise
Not a
model. I
franchise.
was actually anti-franchise forever until 6 months ago. And now that's the direction we're going. You know, we went around the bush a lot of times on how to expand this model and what it means to expand in a, you know, a B type corporation way, and how to fund that. You know, and we talked to a lot of investors for a long time. I turned down a lot of money from investors to sell part of this company. And right now I still own the whole company. And very soon though, we'll be separating entities and we will be franchising. So that's really exciting news. And, you know, we got a landing page for that on the website now. So if you want to jump in there,
saunahouse.com.
Yeah. And look at what we're doing for that.
Excellent.
You can get a snapshot view there.
Great.
But that's a really exciting way to expand. And, like we're 1% for the Planet members, right? And we donate 1% of our gross revenue to the organization's partnerships. Like locally here, we work with Asheville Greenworks as our partner. But we're going to be able to amplify that impact a lot faster because all of our franchise locations, you know, will be part of 1% of the Planet through their franchise fees, royalties and stuff to us. And so we're working on that right now. We've hired a bunch of new people. The corporate team's scaling up. We'll be taking some investment capital to fund the franchise, but we'll be legally selling franchises in February of 2020.
Of next year, of 2022.
2022, yeah.
2022.
Opening 2023.
Yeah. Nice. Wow. So what would that look like for a potential business owner or an investor?
Yeah.
How would they go about doing that with the Sauna House?
Well, they would go to the website and go in and just submit it. Right now, I'm not even legally allowed to say certain types of things. Franchise has a really strict law. That's a good thing for all the entrepreneurs to know. It's important to work with professional attorneys and who specialize in franchising because every state has laws. There's federal law, and you can only say certain types of things about the business to advertise your franchise.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, if people are curious about that, go on the website and hop on, and then join the newsletter because we'll be like talking about it all the time next year. But that's been a hard thing to prepare for and learn about. There is like a whole new world.
When you were initially resistant to that, how did you pivot? Like, what were you thinking about, and then how did you get back into the franchise idea?
Yeah, I was thinking about capital and leveraging capital and where that capital comes from, and you know, if we were going to expand Sauna House on our own, the capital intensiveness of that is not scalable unless you have just a gigantic funding, right? And even then, you have to build like franchising is nice because it's like a format. And so we have like a game plan. A lot of other people have done this in the past, and our model works really well for it. And so when we looked at the capital intensiveness and then we said, look, our model works really well for franchising. Like, we should learn more about it. And ultimately what really happened for me as a founder was that I believe in giving equity to other players on my team and, you know, investors as well. And they want to have an exit, right? Like people want an exit. I get that. They don't want me to have control and never sell. Right. And that was my mentality, like never sell. I wanted to have a legacy company that had, you know, 15 to 25 locations and 500 to 800 employees and be really self-supporting and pay really great wages and care for our team really well. And that was just not achievable quickly.
Because of the capital.
Yeah. And so, but I'm also a coach. Like I grew up playing ice hockey and I love coaching ice hockey. And when we started to think about how fun it would be to coach these other entrepreneurs who come into our ecosystem and join the Sauna House mission and embrace our values and like mesh with us and and bring this to more people, right? Like we also want our product to impact as many people as possible because we know it's good for the world.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is medicine. This
Right.
is the future of preventative health care. You know, this is a really important thing to roll out. So, and somebody's going to do it. And I can't live knowing that somebody else sets the standard because I care really deeply for the ethics and the integrity of healing environments. Whereas, you know, not everyone does, right? There's a lot of profit inside wellness. You know, it's big business. And there's a way to bring this to the world with, you know, a lot of integrity. And that's why our team wants to help the United States adopt communal bathing culture because we don't really have it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everywhere, you know, if you go to a Korean bathhouse in San Francisco, it's one way. And then if you go to Banya SF in San Francisco, it's another way. And that's amazing and wonderful. But Sauna House is kind of like entry level. We want to teach people and get people into the bathhouse world. And what we teach them here, they'll be able to take to Banya. They'll be able to take to the Korean baths and have this respect for the culture and the traditions of those bathhouses like they do here. So we really want to bring it to the world so that to help protect I should say the experience of communal bathing. Yeah.
There is something about this experience that is just so cellularly core.
Yeah.
And the result of accessing that core experience is, oh, this was really good. And I want to do this again. And I want to bring my spouse or my friends and do this with them because this was great. And so, like I said early on, I'm a believer. I'm super curious, just the origin story. Like, how did you go from helicopters to Sauna House?
Yeah, well,
because there must have been some kind of
my girlfriend at the time, now wife. We lived in Charleston, and then Katie and I moved to San Francisco because we wanted to live on the West Coast. We had a lot of friends in San Francisco, so we packed up, moved out there, and my apartment complex was on Potrero Hill. It was like this old school motel. And it used to be a crash pad for pilots back in the 70s. It had this courtyard pool, you know, on a really steep hill.
Okay.
And one day I was down in the basement and there was a sauna next to the garbage cans, like this little window. And I opened it and it was kind of like dirty and dark. Like
a sauna room?
Yeah, sauna room.
But abandoned.
Abandoned. Yeah, no one used it in the whole building. And we had this pool, but no one used that either because they didn't heat it. And in San Francisco, most of the year it's freezing cold, right? So like kids would brave it and stuff like from time to time.
Like in and out.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was playing in this competitive ball hockey league in San Francisco, and it's pretty brutal. I mean, street hockey with all these ex-D1 guys and pros in San Francisco. I mean, it was one of the most competitive hockey leagues I've ever played in.
Cool.
I would come back so sore. My legs were wrecked. And my best friend, Lane, we played sports together in high school. He had suffered multiple concussions. And he told me at the time, like, nothing helped him more than cold water therapy every night before bed. And he might be able to get some good sleep because he suffered like kind of TMJ, sleep apnea, chronic fatigue, different nerve pains and stuff like that.
Wow.
And so this was like Wim Hof just launched his very first online course, and me and Lane split it for $200. Don't tell Wim. And so we did 30 days of ice baths, and I was hooked. Like I came back from ball hockey, ice bath, fine the next day. Wow. Legs fine, right? Like amazing recovery tool for hard contact sports. And at the same time, Tim Ferriss just launched his first podcast. And within his first like 10 or 12 guests or something, Rhonda Patrick was on, and she talked about sauna and how good it was for you. And I had just found the one in my basement. And so I started doing sauna all the time. And then the pool that was never heated.
So you cleaned out the sauna and got it running?
Yeah, got it running. And then I started recruiting different friends who lived in the building to join me. We started having great conversations about business, about our spouses. And we just started spending time in there with each other, and it was great. And then I started experiencing the bathhouse in San Francisco, and then I started to experience them internationally, and my love for just the whole scene grew and grew. And it's still growing today, but
yes, it is.
But that's how it like started, and my wife really encouraged me to open Sauna House Asheville. Like when we moved to Asheville from San Francisco, I was looking for my next thing, and she was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And so I kicked it around a little, and I used to call bathhouses in different parts of the country and ask them how busy they were, ask them how it's like, if they got an appointment on Friday, I'm flying in, and pretend to be someone who was interested in coming.
Right.
Yeah. And ask questions. Mostly I was just saying, are you busy all the time? Like I think you are, and
smart little research.
Yeah. And then I started meeting some owners and stuff, which was cool. Yeah. And then, we just leased a building and invested all of our personal savings and more into the space. And it was working great until COVID. And then yeah.
Well, what would you recommend because one of the things that I'm hearing is that you definitely followed your heart on this. This was an inside passion that clearly connected with your well-being. And I do think that the origin story for a lot of entrepreneurs is they're trying to solve a problem for themselves.
Definitely.
And then realize that they're not alone in solving that problem.
Yeah.
And then they go to market.
Yeah, I mean, big part of my problem was like anxiety and depression as well. I was recovering from alcoholism. I was like about 2 years, with no alcohol. I still suffered from depression. And cold water therapy is one of the most ancient remedies for depression there is. So I was solving a problem for myself. I was helping self-heal my body.
So in that strive to then solve this problem and then figure out a way to enterprise it, what would be some of the core lessons that you would give an entrepreneur, a business owner? Because I think what was helpful is recognizing that, you got to get up out of bed in the morning and feel really good about your business. Because if you don't, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
But, if there's a different feeling as you get up and go after your business, and it's positive and it's inspiring, then of course, you're going to keep doing it. You're going to keep hustling. And of course, there's going to be obstacles. Like who could have predicted COVID?
Yeah, no.
And especially in a business like this, anything having to do with hospitality, screeching brakes, stop. Now, what do we do? Like I said, you've done an amazing job of staying in the lane of building your business.
Yeah.
And if you were to pass on a couple of golden nuggets, that's my invitation.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things, right? Like my life right now looks a lot different than it did before I started the company and I had kids, right? All we have is focus and attention, right? And where you're giving that attention matters. People laugh, like I don't watch television or movies or anything. I don't really watch YouTube. Unless I'm trying to learn something. So if you have a really narrow focus, you can always accomplish more because now your attention is always on the thing that you actually care about, whether that's your kids, your wife, your exercise, your fitness, your nutrition, or your business, right? And so for me, like I have like buckets that I try and keep full. Otherwise, like I won't keep loving my company if all there is my company and my wife hates me and my kids don't want to be around me and all that, right? So caring for things in a way that nourishes you will allow you to be there for your business the most, in my opinion. Now, there's a lot of extreme examples of that, of like the greatest creators in history, like Nikola Tesla, like married a dove, right? And they spent all their time and energy in there, but they weren't well-balanced people. Right. And I'm not trying to be one of those people. So if you are trying to be one of those people, you can be. You can be, that way. But for me, I need balance, and I need my attention to be narrowly focused on what really matters. And that's like my family, my company, and my friends and acquaintances, and my body and my mind, right? So a narrow focus will go a long way. And then
I love that. Yeah.
Also for me, like, I'm not motivated by money. So, I've tried to be motivated by money in the past, but I'm not motivated by money. And so if you know yourself and you're able to really know who you are, then you're going to run a business that works for who you really are. And there's so many different types of entrepreneurs. But if you can realize, like, when your ego is at play, you're going to have a much better chance at finding a business that you actually love and want to work on. Because my ego ran the ship for a while, and I ran a lot of businesses that were designed at making money and sometimes successful. But at the end of the day, I was like, drunk and suicidal, right?
Yeah. Right.
So let's that's
not sustainable.
Yeah, not sustainable.
Right.
But yeah, that's one wisdom is like a narrow focus for people.
Yeah.
And be really aware of your attention, right? Because again, that really is all we've got.
I think that's beautiful. I want to thank you for saying that, because in a way, this is something that's coming up a lot for me as well as an entrepreneur. And I'm working on this inner MBA program that's sort of been sponsored by Sounds True and Wisdom 2.0. And a lot of their sort of content is really addressing that inner landscape.
Yeah.
Sure, we're going to do this MBA, we're going to focus on business, but there's this inner version of this that is also super important to address in order to be fully successful, and I think also meaningful. And I think what you've done is you've just seeded my next season for 2022 as a theme. So
yeah,
because I think that's core. Like I just don't. We work too darn hard.
Yeah.
To accomplish the things that we're doing. And if we're not in alignment with some of these core practices and principles, like focus and attention, like listening, paying attention to the red flags, all of those things, then we're gonna fail. And we didn't start the business because we didn't think there was value there. And if we fail at delivering that value for the wrong reasons, then there's people missing out on receiving that value.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan, and I just can't thank you enough for taking this time.
Yeah.
And I'll be back here, that's for sure.
Great. Yeah. Come get your daily dose of medicine.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Trey. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.